Okay. So, Terminator Dark Fate. It's come to this. They're getting the band back together. I mean, it's not really hard to get Arnie back because he's literally down for any of this. But they got Linda Hamilton back. We got a new Terminator. Who's the girl? Is it a Logan-esque sort of story? Don't even worry about it. Here's how I would do it. Okay, here's the issue. With Genesis, they literally gave it all away. You know, they told you explicitly, we're going back to the past, but then Sarah Connor knows that Kyle Reese was coming and all the rest of it, and also the twist with John Connor and everything. It's spoilers for a 4-year-old film that nobody saw. It was ridiculous. It was just coming out the wazoo. I didn't even feel like I needed to go see it. Anyway, they literally gave everything. So for my Dark Fate, we're giving you nothing. Absolutely zip. There's no big reveal. There's no hint to what's actually going on. You're going to see different trailers and different storylines and be like, wait, what? Like, the posters will each be based on different stories. So one's going to be in the style of the original Terminator, but maybe it's a young Linda Hamilton in the sunglasses or whatever. And then like a Judgment Day one where it's all like back to the 90s and what have you. You know, we're gonna have a trailer playing like some Radiohead and stuff like that. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And then people will be like, wait, I thought this was for the new film, and it is, but we're covering the old ground as well. But the posters and stuff will literally look nigh on identical to how the old ones did. We want to throw the scent. People are going to be thinking, wait, did they just have these knocking around in the cinema? Like, did they just put the old posters up? Yes and no. We want to be totally throwing the scent off. We want to embrace the farce of this franchise and make people intrigued to know what's going on. You know, they're going to be seeing like a Salvation trailer when it's going to tell you that Dark Fate's going to be set in the future and it's going to be this fight against machines and the big one and essentially the opening for Genesis. But then we're going to see another one that is this Suspiria, this 70s political espionage, where Sarah Connor's maybe running for governor and maybe she's running for governor, and the Terminator is using political savvy to try and take her out that way because it'd be too obvious otherwise. Maybe other Terminators assassinating other. Maybe do pull like an Assassin's Creed and have Terminators be behind the major assassinations of the time. Who knows? That might be a little bit insensitive, but it's fine. And one that I'm really excited about, where it's Terminator in Vietnam, and they're killing off, I guess Sarah Connor's dad when he was fighting in Vietnam. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's a twist because the original Predator had that aesthetic. It was all jungly and it was hot and humid and steamy, and Arnold was all of those things. Well, what if instead of like Arnold hunting the Predator, it's a group of not Arnolds hunting an Arnold? It's a group of normal soldiers who are being tracked down by this Terminator, who they assume is just like a rogue commando, like a Rambo-esque person, and that's all going to be told in the span of like 2.5-minute trailer. So everyone's going to be like, what's going on? So then we're going to hit our late October, early November 2019 release date. Oh, Comic-Con as well. Comic-Con, we're going to give them nothing. There's going to be like, we're going to have a 3-hour stall, but it's just constantly going to change. Like new groups of actors who are going to come on, and they're the creative teams, and there's going to be one guy, like James Cameron could come on, and he's telling you about it. It's like, hey, okay, well, yeah, so, we got this film, and it's set in Vietnam, and it's like Predator, but instead they're fighting Arnolds. Let me pass you over to the creative team, and they're gonna, our storyboard directors, and they're gonna take you further. But then the storyboard directors come on, and they tell you about a totally different film, where they've essentially recreated the original Terminator, but it's Arnold being hunted, and Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton is playing the Terminator, and they've actually used all the camera techniques they did in the 70s. And then everyone will clap. They're a little confused, but they'll clap. And then James Cameron will be like, "Oh, thank you. Well, now here's our concept designers," and they'll go tell you about the film, and they'll tell you just a completely different plot, and about we tried to redo Terminator 3, but with early 2000s political paranoia and stuff, and sort of present, really play on that aspect of it, and everyone's just gonna be so. Maybe people will start shouting like, "This doesn't make sense. What's all this about?" We're just gonna ignore it and take those people out with a Terminator. It's gonna be fun. So what is the story? What are people gonna see when they sit down in the cinemas on a chilly night in November? Well, This whole film is a series of what-if scenarios that are not bound by canon. So we're leaving the door open for more films, because I do firmly believe you can make a decent franchise out of these films, including recasting any people that we put in this film, because in this film we're establishing that the whole franchise exists in a big ebb and flow. Like, so, for example, in one reality that we see, everyone actually listens to Miles Dyson and gets themselves armed against Terminators. Skynet just keeps sending more and more back, more aggressively and more powered than the last. But it's a pretty everyday job to just... But it's like Pacific Rim. It's just, at this point, it's a pretty everyday job just to take out Terminators. Because people are just told to do this by the government. And, you know, it's just kind of like, oh, honey, there's a T-800 on the lawn. Okay, I'll go take care of it. Like Purge style, do you know what I mean? It's like these are events. And people, but in this reality, people don't just follow John Connor blindly either as some sort of idea. They've got no idea who he is, because he lives in hiding, and the world never knows his name, because it's easier to throw the scent off and blah 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 blah. We play out that story, cut to black, and in another reality, we pick up the story back up from Terminator Genesis. We've got a young Sarah Connor being raised by Pops. Yes, we're accepting Genesis is canon in one what-if scenario. She totally knows. She knows the T-800's coming at the observatory, and she hijacks it, and she actually kills it. She knows Kyle Reese is coming and stuff, so by the time he meets her and stuff, she's just kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll hop in. She doesn't do the cheesy, like, climb in if you want to live.
Come with me if you want to live!
She's already dealt with it. Pops is like, I see no reason, it's too wide, blah, de blah.
I've seen little to indicate that you're fit guardian for Sarah Connor.
But they're not doing the kind of, alright, well, here we go, and let's get it over with. They are just kind of like, well, we've killed that Terminator now, and we're aware that the future's going to happen, so we don't even need to... John Connor may or may not be born at some point, but we kind of don't need him, because I'm going to be the revolutionary leader. I'm taking my own fate, because I've got this T-100 here that's going to help me. And then that'll cut to black, and then the next story will pick up, and this one was kind of touched on by a couple of other people, and it does lean into the Vietnam idea I established, but we're going all the way back to World War One. We're in the trenches. It's the Battle of the Somme, and one of John Connor's great granddads is being sought out by a Terminator. So it's the scene from Wonder Woman, but instead of her getting up to go fight the enemy, it's coming. He is the enemy. He's coming towards them, and they're all trying to protect John Connor's great granddad. Who's fighting in the war, but of course they've just got primitive technology and literally no clue what's going off. And then I haven't really developed this one very far, but like another group even further back in time, they're somewhere really cold and isolated. Maybe they're part of the Arctic expedition, or a Arctic expedition. I mean, if we're doing what ifs, maybe Arctic expeditions are a dime a dozen, who knows? And they're in somewhere very cold and isolated, and the Terminator, it's kind of an earlier version, so it's hinted at in the first film that Terminators are hiding amongst humans, but you can always tell that it's Terminator, but then you can stop telling because they get better at it. Well, let's have that. Let's have a Terminator hidden amongst the people. It's like the thing. It's great. But these what-if scenarios happen willy-nilly? No, son. There is a point. So what's actually going on is that all these stories are seen through Skynet. We get to the third act and we pan out totally. We see every bit of film and trailers and stuff just that we've seen so far up on Matrix level screens. Skynet's reviewing all its options and possible outcomes. It's become an AI. It's the ultimate Terminator. Its head is being filled with this knowledge in the hopes that it can figure out the best way to not die and to support itself. What's basically happened is John Connor got to it and uploaded his consciousness into the machine to make it more empathetic and see the light and see that it's futile. It was quite messy, it's a bit sci-fi, but don't worry about it. But that was like 100 years ago, so we didn't actually see it happen, it's just told in flashbacks. And Skynet is now a mix of a man and a computer, but both burdened with the knowledge of what has happened and what could happen and all the rest of it. Anyway, so the AI is it's this Isaac Asimov-esque level of sci-fi. It's left grappling with the guilt and knowledge of being left with the choice. It likes John Connor and it knows him and it is him, and he understands Skynet's point, but neither want the destruction of humanity because certain events need to happen for John to get there in the first place and for them to actually find this common ground. So I'm not really sure where this could go. I'm happy to leave it pretty open-ended, very sort of Westworld level philosophies. maybe this is lazy or cop-out, whatever, but Judgment Day is always happening, and ultimately the franchise is about war, and every film is going to either show you, well, here's the war happening, or here's us trying to prevent the war. Because there's the audience perspective of we know what the Terminator is. Even if you've never seen the Terminator, you've got a vague understanding of what clues in the name. You know, all right, well, here's this assassin, and we've lived with that since the first film came out. So the idea of Skynet sending Terminators back in time, it's not exciting anymore. It's not new and it's not challenging, and it can only sustain a franchise for so long. Especially when we already saw Judgment Day in Terminator 3. And then we've seen the war that happens afterwards, and we've seen the super fan servicey mess that was Genesis, and so why the hell not? It's a campy franchise, the concept is ridiculous, and you can have a lot of fun with time travel. So instead of having a convoluted series of events which are all about this big butterfly's wings flapping that's affecting the next film, let's have some fun, out of chronology, out of continuity, and let's just see where it takes us.